It's time for KP's Video News. KP's Video News, y'all. KP's Video News, y'all. KP's Video News, y'all. Right.
That's right, it's KP's Video News. I'm going to give out the shout out to Rich Hardy down in the ATL. I'm going to give you my best Bernie Mac impersonation. Said, don't get them Georgia niggas nothing. Country niggas nothing. Telling you, dollar bill from Chicago. Get them niggas nothing. Leave the back door open. All right, here we go. Voter suppression, folks. We'll get serious now. Voter suppression in the United States concerns allegations about various efforts, legal and illegal, used to prevent eligible voters from exercising their right to vote. Were found with such voter suppression efforts vary by state, local government, precinct, and election. Separately, there have also been various efforts to disenfranchise and enfranchise various voters in the country, which concern whether or not people are eligible to vote in the first place. You got to see the Voters' Rights Act. Telling you, man, the methods that they use, the methods, the passage of the 15th Amendment in 1870 guaranteed the right to vote for the men of all races, including former slaves initially. This resulted in high voter turnout among African Americans in the South. In 1880, United States presidential election, a majority of eligible African American voters cast ballots in every southern state except for 2. In 8 southern states, black turnout was equal or greater to the white turnout. At the end of Reconstruction era, the southern states began implementing policies to suppress black voters. In 1890, less than 9,000 of Mississippi's 147,000 eligible African American voters were registered to vote, or about 6%. Louisiana went from 130,000 registered down to 1,342. So they came up with a lot of stuff. Poll taxes. Poll taxes were used to disenfranchise voters. In other words, you had to pay to vote, to charge a fee to vote. Literacy tests. Like the poll test, literacy tests were primarily used to disenfranchise poor African American voters that couldn't read. So if they said if you couldn't read, you couldn't vote. But contemporary, this is what they're doing now. They're purging the voter rolls. In 1998, Florida created the Florida Central Voter File to combat vote fraud documented in the 1997 mayor election. Many people were purged from voter registration lists in Florida because their names were similar to those of convicted felons who were not allowed to vote at the time under Florida law. According to in Palm Beach, African Americans accounted for 88% of those removed. 88% of those removed from the polls, but were only 11% of Florida's voters. However, according to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, nearly 89% of felons convicted in Florida are black. Therefore, a purge of convicted felons could be expected to be included in a disproportionately high number of blacks. Wow. They're using all these old crazy tactics, man. So Georgia was challenged for requesting more Social Security-based verifications than any other state. About 2 million voters in total. And attorney involved in the lawsuit said that since the letters were mailed with fewer than 90 days before the election, Georgia violated federal law. So they tried to make people come down there with voter IDs. Bring your ID, and then they talk about bringing your Social Security card as identification to vote. Limitations on early and absentee voting. North Carolina, Republican lawmakers requested data on various voting practices broken down by race. Then they passed laws that restricted voting and registration in many ways that disproportionately affected African Americans, including cutting back on early voting. In 2016, the Appellate Court of the United States Court of Appeals, Fourth Circuit, struck down a law that removed the first week of early voting. the court held that the GOP used the data they gathered to remove the first week of early voting because more African American voters voted during that week. And African American voters were more likely to vote for Democrats between 2018 and 2012. And in North Carolina, 70% of African American voters voted early. So as of 2020, Georgia requires absentee voters to provide their own postage for their ballots, and the ACLU filed a lawsuit challenging this rule. And voter procedure disinformation. So you got voter procedure disinformation, which involves giving false information about when and how to vote, leading them to fail to cast their ballots. So back in 2004, the brothers Charles and David Koch want to support Republican candidates and causes in the United States, sent many Democratic voters a mailing that gave an incorrect deadline for returning absentee ballots. Voters who relied on the deadline in the mailing could have sent their ballots too late for them to be counted. The organization claimed that it was caused by a typographical error. And in 2000, just prior to 2018, people were warned of numerous types of deliberate misinformation, sometimes targeting specific demographics. These types of disinformation include false information about casting ballots online, by email, and by text message. The circulation of doctored photographs in 2016, which claimed immigration and customs enforcement agents were arresting voters at polling places and included threatening language meant to intimidate Latino voters. Polling places hoaxes, disinformation on remote voting locations, suspicious texts, voting machine malfunction rumors, misleading photos and videos, and false voter allegations. I'm telling you, man, they doing it all. Caging lists. Caging lists have been used by political parties to eliminate potential voters registered with other political parties. A political party sends registered mail to addresses of registered voters, and the mail, if the mail is returned as undeliverable, the mailing organization uses that fact to challenge the registration, arguing that because the voter could not be reached at the address, the registration is fraudulent. Identification requirements, like I stated before, voter ID, the voter ID laws, and it's like, man, the Texas voter ID law discriminated against black and Hispanic voters because only a few types of ID were allowed. For example, military IDs and concealed carry permits were allowed, but state employee photo IDs and university photo IDs were not. In 2017, an updated version of the same Texas voter law was found unconstitutional by federal district court, and the district judge indicated that one potential remedy for the discrimination would be to order Texas election-related laws to be pre-cleared by the U.S. Department of Justice. The court also ruled that the law would force some voters to spend money traveling to a government office to update the identification information. The court compared this provision to a poll tax. So this is all the stuff that they're doing. Don't forget, the state of Texas is being sued right now because they just came up with another crazy law talking about they were only going to have one drop-off box for ballots per county. One per county. So if you go to a county like where Dallas is, for instance, just say you got 5 million people that live in Dallas. You're talking about one box to drop off the votes. One box. So, voter suppression efforts range from the seemingly obstructive, like I said, voter ID laws and cuts to early voting to mass purges of voter rolls and systematic disenfranchisement. And long before election cycles even begin, legislatures can redraw district lines that determine the weight of your vote. Certain communities are particularly susceptible to suppression and in some cases outright targeted. People of color, students, the elderly, and people with disabilities. And I'm telling you, man, this stuff right here is the real deal. It's the real deal. And now I'm gonna tell you, this is what's been happening here lately. Florida, yesterday they had a deadline for voter registration, where you can vote of registration online, and the website crashed. It totally crashed. So people have filed lawsuits against the state of Florida for voter suppression. So therefore, the governor came back out today stating that they're going to extend the voter registration for the state of Florida. However, after doing a little research, I discovered that not only did Florida have glitches in their voter registration, California, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Michigan had a data breach. Arkansas, North Carolina, Connecticut, all these states had some type of issues with their voter registration websites. And coincidentally, on the days that is supposed to have been the deadline day, all of these ones had issues where the websites just crashed for no apparent reason. Now they try to say, well, it crashed because so many people was trying to get registered. Yeah, that's the only thing you need it for, is for voter registration. That should never crash. It's mighty mysterious that most of these states on here are swing states: Florida, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Hey, Arkansas is on there too. So, telling you folks, this is some real garbage that's going on. And now this is information I'm about to give you right now, and I stated it once before, and I'm gonna state it again. Coming up within the next few weeks, I'm talking to anybody out there that's going to be protesting, for Breonna Taylor or whatever you're going to be protesting for Jonathan down in Texas or whatever. It just got murdered over the weekend by a cop, allegedly, from a source, a reliable source, from somebody that I know that works in law enforcement, told me that within the next few weeks, the police departments nationwide, listen to what I'm telling you, police departments nationwide are going to be doing mass arrests before Election Day. Mass arrests. So therefore, you get arrested prior to Election Day, guaranteed they're going to hold you until after Election Day. So they're trying every tactic that they possibly can to suppress this vote, because they already know that Trump is losing, and they're going to do whatever they can to keep the vote suppressed. This is a reliable source that I got this information from, and I'm telling you now, if you're going to protest, go out and protest in the daytime, but be in the house before these curfews kick in these cities that have curfews, after dark curfews, because otherwise they're going to just swoop you up, arrest you, take you to jail, and they're going to hold you, until, like I said, after Election Day, so you won't be able to vote. This is what I'm saying. All this stuff is going to start particularly around after the middle of the month. So you're talking about next week, around the 15th, when things start getting going, like around the 15th, from the 15th through the 30th. If you can stay at home, stay at home. Don't go out there and get arrested so you can't vote. Don't do it. Don't do it, folks. I'm telling you now. So we had a switching over now, but get registered. Get registered. If you're going to go get registered online, if it's some old people that don't know how to do it, help them. That's legal. You can help them get registered. For the younger generation, 18-year-olds, it's the first time they're voting. Help them, show them how to do it. Get your ballots all, your books and stuff, your ballot books all filled out. So when you get ready to vote, if you're going to vote in person, you can go ahead and have that with you as a reference. Be ready, folks. Be ready, because, see, this is an extremely important election that's coming up. Give them nothing. So, got a Georgia man arrested for pointing a gun at Black Lives Matter protesters, and a man has been charged with aggravated assault and reckless conduct after he threw what appears to be a smoke grenade at protesters, then pointed a gun at them outside Savannah City Hall on Saturday. 34-year-old Frederick James of Decatur, Georgia, is accused of throwing something at a group of Black Lives Matter protesters as they lay on the floor in peaceful demonstration on Bay Street near the Savannah River, and he is accused of pointing a gun at the members of the public. In the video captured on that day, the black truck pulls over to the protesters who were lying on the ground, and the group was planning on remaining on the ground for 8 minutes and 42 seconds in solidarity with George Floyd, who was killed in Minneapolis by Derek Chauvin, knelt on his neck for that amount of time. The green smoke canister appears to be thrown from the black vehicle. Protesters responded from jumping up, and some run away from the scene, and others attack the vehicle. One man is seen kicking the car, and another throws his bike at the vehicle. Another man launches something at the car, and the man in the yellow top is clearly exiting the vehicle and the driver's side, walking around the truck and pointing what appears to be a gun at the protesters. So anyway, he was arrested. He was arrested for, in charge, arrested in charge. Now here's the story of the day here. The Manhattan DA can obtain Trump's tax returns. The Manhattan District Attorney can enforce a subpoena seeking President Trump's personal and corporate tax returns. A federal appeals panel ruled today, dealing yet another blow to the president's year-long battle to keep his financial records out of the hands of state prosecutors. The unanimous ruling by a 3-judge panel in New York rejected the president's argument that the subpoena should be blocked because it was too broad and amounted to political harassment from Cyrus Vance. Grand juries must necessarily paint with the broad brush, the judges wrote. They concluded that the president did not show that Mr. Vance had been driven by politics. None of the president's allegations, taken together or separately, are sufficient to raise a plausible inference that the subpoena was issued out of malice or intent to harass. Trump is expected to try to appeal the decision to the United States Supreme Court, and Ms. Vance has said that his office will not enforce the subpoena for 12 days in exchange for the president's lawyers agreeing to move quickly. The president and Mr. Vance have been locked in a bitterly contested legal dispute since August 2019, when Mr. Vance's office first subpoenaed 8 years of Trump's tax returns and other financial records that his accounting firm Mazars USA. The subpoena is part of the investigation into Trump and his business practices. Vance has not revealed the scope of the office's criminal inquiry, citing grand jury secrecy, but prosecutors have suggested in court papers that they are looking at a range of potential crimes, including tax and insurance fraud and falsification of business records. They have said that his tax returns are central to this investigation. That's right. And Michael Cohen stated that Trump's personal fixer has stated that Trump is guilty. He's going to jail. The president's bare assertion that the scope of the grand jury's investigation is limited only to certain payments made by Michael Cohen in 2016 amounts to nothing more than implausible speculation. Without the benefit of the linchpin assumption, all other allegations of overbreadth, they wrote, fall short. So, here we go. Trump got to give his taxes up. Give them up. We already know you only paid $750 from that other stuff that got revealed last week. $750 in 2016 and 2017. You're guilty. Guilty. You're guilty. That's right. So, don't give Trump nothing. Give him nothing. Take him to jail.
KPVIDEONEWS, y'all.
Dollar bill.
KPVIDEONEWS.